another Unit Busters webinar. This is our sales and marketing webinar series, something actually we partnered up with our friends over at Monster Lead Group, and we're just super excited to bring this to you today. Today, I mean, this is like a special treat. I'm really excited about this. I mean, I don't know if you guys have plugged in and paid attention to actually to who we have with Daniel Nygaard, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. But before we get started, I always like to kick these off, just kind of get an idea of where everyone's connecting from. So if you could, let's use that question box, because I'm going to want your questions later. So let's use that question box to let us know where you're connecting from. So just take a minute to write in the city and state that you're connecting with, and we just want to get an idea. All right, let's see where we got. We got George from Dallas. We got John from Brea, Sandy from Billings. We got Greg coming in from Denver, Tammy coming in from River Falls, Andrew from Texas. We got Matt coming in from Port St. Lucie, Ryan from Philly. We got Mark from Denver, James from Des Moines. I know it's not that way. Dean coming in from Oxford. Let's see. Oh, I don't even know. Massimo, I don't even know where that's from. New Hampshire. Very cool. Of course, some people coming in from Hawaii. And never anyone from New York. New Yorkers are always late to these things. It's amazing. Like we do these from New York, and New Yorkers don't actually come into at least like 5-10 minutes into these webinars. Let's see. We got Jean Jock from Rockville. We got Gita from Michigan. Ruth from Virginia. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So listen, before we get started, I'm taking my phone right now, putting on mute. Going to take it actually and stick it in my drawer so it's out of the way. We'll be in and out of this ideally inside of an hour. We try to actually keep these under 60 minutes so we can kind of focus. Let you get on with your day after this. But please, join us and make sure you use that question box. We love when these things are interactive. And for this, we really, really think it's an important thing to get going here. So just a quick introduction. Today, you're going to be joining us today is Daniel Nygaard, who's the founder and CEO of Sales Remastered. Daniel, you with us?
I am.
Fantastic, awesome, great to have you join us. And we're gonna show actually Daniel. He's got an awesome setup actually in his office. He does Facebook Lives. He does has a great coaching platform that you got to connect with. An unbelievable library of videos. I mean, really just phenomenal things. You got to check it. But he is one of the mortgage industry's most influential sales development coaches. Top originator. Managed a team of people. You got to connect with him. And also joining us after that is going to be Ken Bartz. Ken, are you with us?
Sure am.
Ken, what's going on? Ken is the chief vision officer for Monster Lead Group. Guy's been in the business for over 25 years. Started out as a loan officer and just took all the things that he learned from being a loan officer, shared them with the industry. Some really, really awesome things. So before we really get started here, guys, I'm just going to launch this quick poll. I'm going to launch because we want to just know from the room, what are you most excited about learning today? So I put up on the screen a quick poll. If you can let us know, what are the things that you're most excited about learning about today? So hopefully you should see that up on your screen. Pick as many as you want. We just want to know actually what you're excited about. We put this presentation based on feedback from a lot of loan originators, but want to know what you, the attendees, feel you're going to get out of this. So far, we already have a third of the room has already voted. We're going to wait till we hit about 50%, and that's when we'll kind of move on. Okay, fantastic. And here we go. There we are. We're at 54%. Keep it going for another 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and we're closing this out. Okay, and I'm going to share the screen right now. All right, and if you see on your screen right now, you'll see actually what we're, so it looks like the poll results. Everyone, out of all the things, the top thing people want to know is how to differentiate yourself and create urgency. That's the top thing. The the thing that people want to know the least is how to build an elite team. Isn't that interesting? And then so right after the differentiate yourself and create urgency, number 2 is how do you own the customer, and then following that is kind of like almost number like right in the tied for third place is changes that protect against the market shift and sales conversations. Very cool, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. All right, Daniel, we're going to turn this over to you. Are you ready over there?
I am ready.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to turn you on over here. We're going to make you the presenter, and let's make sure we're showing your webcam. All right, just give us 1 second here. We're getting it going. All right, and Daniel, you're sharing your webcam, right?
Should be, yes.
Okay, let's see. All right, hold on for a second. You don't want to see me, you want to see Daniel here. Okay, and are you're sharing your screen right now? I think it's waiting to give you the approval.
Should be. It says sharing screen.
Oh, okay. All right. For some reason, I'm not seeing your screen.
Is that there? Does that work?
Hold on. Let's see here. We're going to view the presenter. So now we see your face there. We got that going on there. And just not seeing your waiting to view your screen. So almost
Maybe
there.
you could drive the slides, Andrew, and then I'll just hop on.
You got it. All right. Taking it back to me, and all right.
Looks like we have 114 of us that's attending. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for taking a few minutes out of your day. I definitely have a lot of valuable information to deliver you, so your time will definitely not be wasted. If you're in a position to grab a pen and paper, you're definitely going to want to grab that. There's going to be a couple gold nuggets that's going to be sprinkled throughout this this review, and some of the things you're really going to want to take away and implement today as soon as possible. All right, Andrew, you there? You good?
Yep.
Am I good to start?
Yep, let's go. Hit
All
it.
right. So hello, everybody. So for those of you who have not heard of me, my name is Daniel Niekart. I operate a sales channel that's on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, pretty much any social platform that you're on. It's the handle or the name is @SalesRemastered. So I invite you to add me to your feed. I'm constantly releasing information that's devoted to building a solid mindset, giving you the right sales techniques. And because I'm in the same trenches as you, I come from a different, unique position that's different from sales trainers that you might be following or maybe working with, or sales mentors, because I actually work in the profession that you do, and that's sales, that's loan origination. So I'm a producing loan originator as well as a sales manager. And I currently lead the #1 team on a national size multi-billion-dollar lending platform, highest average fundings, highest average units. So I know what I'm talking about, and I invite you to check out the credentials as well as check out the channels after this, because you can never stop learning. And I think that the 3 topics that we're going to cover today are going to be very, very helpful with helping you not only drive the sales conversation, but differentiating yourself from your competition, because we have so many different competitors within this market. It's hard to make noise in a different way when you're kind of viewed at as everyone else, right? And then last but not least, I'm going to teach you how to foster loyalty and a unique way to create urgency that we need in order to keep our clients glued to us over what now is a 60-day, sometimes even longer process from open to close. And so here's if you guys can see the screen, again, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, the handle is @SalesRemastered. So be sure that you add me to your stream and follow, like, and subscribe anywhere that you find me. So going over to the first topic, which is how to drive a sales conversation. I believe in order to fully drive a sales conversation, we have to understand a few things. And that's number one is the sales conversation is not meant for closing. You know, sales and closing are two different things. And I think most loan officers, unfortunately, try to go in for the close right away. And so they're talking numbers, they're pricing deals, and they don't know specifically why the prospect even wants that particular result, right? And so there's a thing to keep in mind whenever you're entering into a sales conversation, is that that sales conversation is meant for primarily two things. Number one is to build rapport, because people deal with people that they like. People buy from people that they like. If you've heard of that saying before, please comment in the comment box and say, yeah, I do know that. But I'm going to teach you how to actually put it into action. And then second, besides rapport, what we really need to focus on is how to build these, what I call leverage points. Leverage points is basically the reason why they need it. And it's understanding the difference between want and need. You see, every single prospect that we talk to, they want the 1.25 30-year fixed, or they want that 2.5 30-year fixed, no fees. That's what they want. But our primary goal is to really understand, what do they need? You see, they want something, but it's because it delivers a solution to a particular need. And so I'm going to cover with you a few ways on how to properly drive a sales conversation. You know, on my website, salesremaster.com, which is going to cover a lot of the techniques that I'm going to cover with you in this first topic, I provide a free sales script. And so the sales script, you know, I'll give you kind of a little bit of the tidbits within the wording and why it's so powerful. But the primary reason why it's powerful is because I understand through thousands and thousands of 1003s that I've done in my career in sales conversations, is that every consumer, every single prospect comes into our conversation with a guard. You know what I mean? If you can agree, please comment in the comment box. But when they come in with a guard, it means that they're protecting themselves. And what they're protecting themselves from is, number one, they want to protect their time, the most valuable thing that they have that they can't get back. And so that's why they usually hit you with immediate, you know, demands of, well, what's your rate and what's your fee? Before I give you my last name, before I give you my address, you know, can you give me this price, and are you worth my time? So understand that, because empathy is step one into properly building rapport. And then number two is that when you come into a sales interaction or a sales conversation, which I'm going to refer to as the initial phone conversation of when you're actually building and completing the 1003, you're building rapport. And the reason for the sales conversation, again, is not to close, but is actually to create somewhat of a bond. And in order to drive the conversation, to gather more attention, to drive them a little bit further down the conversation time, you have to find things that they can relate to. You know, there's this one abbreviation, and some of you might have heard of it. It's called WIIFM. It's everyone's favorite station. If you know what that stands for, comment in the comment box. What does WIIFM stand for? And it's so true, because people are going to relate with things that apply to them. If you really think about it, consumers on a daily basis, due to the advances in you know, technology and internet, from all the devices we have, from cell phones to iPads to computers to TV screens, we are shown advertisements literally over 10,000 times a day. And so this is something that we kind of have learned as consumers to filter out. And so in actually engaging in a sales conversation, it's not to advertise, right? In engaging in a sales conversation, in order to drive it, you have to make it custom fit. And so one of the opening lines within my sales script that you could download absolutely for free, I do recommend you use your personal email address, as your work email will more than likely quarantine it, because it's coming from salesremaster.com. You'll notice that the opening line says something like, you know, if the lead was being transferred to you from a customer service representative, or they're just calling in, you know, it says, it goes something along the effect of, thank you for holding. The reason why you're connected with me is that I am authorized to provide you with the information that you need. Now, the reason why I open it up that way is because, number one, is I need to show authority. Number two is I'm also letting them know it's information that they need. Next, it's followed up with the line of, before we begin, let me just make sure that I can help you first. If I can, I'm going to show you exactly what I can do. But if you're in the best loan possible that you can have, I'll at least point you in the right direction and save you some time. Now, what that does is it dismantles the guard that every single prospect has. And the most important piece of a sales conversation is you need to control it. As a loan officer, if you're starting off your sales conversations like most loan officers, and I'm not going to ask you to admit it by commenting in the comment box, but if your sales conversation sounds something like, hey, this is Daniel with such and such company. It's a great day. We're on a recorded line. How can I help you? The problem with that is that you're giving them back control of the conversation. And most oftentimes, what do they say? Yeah, I just want to know what your rates are. I just want to know what your fees are. And that completely changes the direction of the conversation, does it not? So my belief and my thesis is that you never give them control of the conversation, but you set up the expectation right from the very beginning. So if a call was transferred to me, what it would sound like is, hey, Jim, thanks for holding. The reason why you're being connected to me is because I'm authorized to provide you with the information that you need. Now, before I begin, let me just ask you a few basic questions just to make sure that I can even complete the call. If I can, I'll show you exactly what I could do. But if I cannot, at least I'll help you save a ton of time and point you in the right direction. Now, the property that we're going to talk about, and this is where it's important for you to have certain information in front of you. So not only are you going to have your CRM, but I highly recommend that you have at least a property profile of some sorts where you have their name, their address, the last time they refinanced. And if you don't have access to that, ask your manager, ask your, whoever is managing your company, the title representative that you have or you deal with can give you access to this information. And there's reason for it, because you want to start announcing things that they're familiar with. Again, WIIFM. For those of you who don't know, that stands for What's in It for Me. It's the station that everyone pays attention to and gives all their time to. But
and by the way, Daniel, I just want to give a shout out. We got like John, Sandy, Stephanie, Tammy, Mike, and just to name a few of the people that did get it right quickly like that. So I just want to give a shout out to those people.
Congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much for participating and engaging.
Tammy and Janet too.
Nice. Okay, so you guys already know, so we're on the same page. And to go back to, understanding that really what they fear, what the consumer fears when they first engage with us is they don't see us for us. They don't see the professional that you are. They see themselves as dealing with a salesman. It's very much like when you and I go into, let's say, a Target or a Kohl's or a retail shop, and we hear the salesman say, hi, how can I help you? Can I help you find something? What do we initially say? We say, no, I'm just looking, even though we really need help, right? And there's a reason for that. It's because we are just constantly protecting ourselves. It's our primitive instincts at work. And so we just have to be empathetic and understand that that's just the way it goes and simply adapt so that we can create an experience that leaves us in control. But the reason why you never hear in my sales script, how can I help you, is because your prospect is only calling you for so many things, right? They're not calling you for an oil change. They're calling you either for a lower rate, a lower payment, or to get pre-approved or pre-qualified to buy a home. So it's either going to fall into one of those buckets. There's no reason, it's almost redundant to ask, how can I help you? Or what did you call in for today? And until you actually set these pieces in place, they're going to go based on how you set up the expectation. And the best possible way to set up the expectation is saying those lines. Again, those lines are available on the free sales script at salesremaster.com. After this webinar, be sure to go there, download a free copy. I'll send you a copy and you can have it available, whenever you need it. But after the opening line of let me just make sure I can complete this call. If I can help you, I'll show you what I can do. If I can't, I'll save you a ton of time and I'll point you in the right direction. It removes their guard. And so with the property profile in front of me, I could start announcing things that apply to them. So like, okay, so the property that we're going to talk about on Memory Lane, this is your primary residence where you live, right? So immediately I'm naming things that they're familiar with, which is giving them almost the sense of, I know what I'm talking about. And so if I say it looks like on memory lane, the last time you did a refinance was with Quicken Loan back in 2017. Does that sound about right? So immediately I'm naming things almost as if I have their information, positioning me with authority. And the reason for this is because I need to build rapport. I need to position myself. I believe sales in itself is chess. It's not checkers. A lot of loan officers right now believe it's checkers because they're trying to one up every competitor. They're trying to say, hey, I'm better than your Loan Depot. I'm better than your Quicken. I'm better than your Better Mortgage. And it's not really about that. It's really about personalizing and actually tailor fitting your solution to your prospect. But the only way that you could do that is if you learn about them. The only way that you can learn about them is if you properly drive the conversation. So after the opening, I like to do what is called bridge questions. So bridge questions will allow you to ask questions that are typically very sensitive, like what's in your checking and savings account every month? Yeah, that's a very sensitive question. You know, people don't like to admit that. But a bridge question will allow you to start from the top and funnel down to that question. And you might be like, well, Daniel, how do I do that? So how you do that is you start off with saying, okay, so the property on memory lane, this is your primary residence. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, outside of the mortgage, what other debts do you currently have? Let's start off with revolving debt. And when they tell you what their revolving debt, which you'll be amazed that 8 out of 10 homeowners live check to check. Do you know why? The reason why they live check to check is because their expenses exceed their income. And so what happens when your expenses exceed the amount of income you have? What most consumers do is they leverage credit card debt. And so even when the market changes and the market rate isn't where it's at, what we need to understand is these certain leverage points that enable us to capture curiosity and actually provide the proper solution that helps homeowners. Because if Mr. Patel called me for the 2.5 30-year fix, no cost loan, I understand that Mr. Patel doesn't necessarily need that rate. He needs a solution. He needs actual extra cash flow. And so my goal is to find out, well, why does he need that cash flow? Most likely it's because of other obligations. And so the question would be, you know, how much of, besides the mortgage with Quicken or whatever loan it is, what other outside debt do you manage? Let's start off with revolving debt. And it is very, very important that you ask it in this certain way, because the sooner that you could find leverage points, the faster you can gain control of the conversation. Because what happens is when they release this information to you, you have enough leverage to sustain control of that conversation. And so if they veer off to the side and say, hey, Daniel, you know, before I give you any personal information, you know, just tell me, do you have this 2.5 interest rate? If you did it correctly, you'd be able to come back and say, you know, I completely understand what you're saying, Jim, but in order to properly manage this $35,000 in credit card debt that you're currently paying a minimum payment on, that's currently eating up your extra cash flow, I need to ask you proper questions so that I can furnish you with information that is applicable to you and is worth your time. Very effective than if I didn't position myself. And that's where sales in itself becomes a chess game. You're thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. And so the bridge question comes like this. Outside of the mortgage, Jim, what other debts do you have? Let's start off with revolving. And you can comment in the comment box because of the conversations you have. Most of the conversations that I have start off with, oh, I owe about $20,000 or $30,000 in credit card debt. And so then the next question would be, how much are you currently sending to just the revolving debt in monthly payments? And what will happen is they'll say 1 or 2 things. I think we such amount, or I send such amount. And it is very important to listen to that, because if they say I think we, then you know that there is another decision maker involved. There's another person that is emotionally tied to that number. And it is very important that you do not present your figures or try to pitch or try to sell unless that person is present. Does that make sense? And now, second, if they say I send and they send an exact amount, then you know you're dealing with the CFO of the family, and that's fine. They have to be there, but you also have to make conscious effort to involve and include the other person inside your sales presentation when that time comes. So if they say, Daniel, I send $500, the next question would be, is that the minimum or is that above and beyond what is due? And that answer is so vitally important with regards to how much leverage you're going to have, because you'll find that most say, I believe that's the minimum due, or we round up. And we already know that if you pay the minimum payments, it's going to take you multiple years just to pay off the debt. But that positions you with at least more authority. So if they give any objection to try to end the conversation, we have enough leverage to keep them on and keep them captivated. So if they say, I send $500, that's the minimum, got it. So if you're only able to send the minimum, we in this industry have what's called a net net. A net net is referring to basically your gross income. You know what you bring home is your net. Well, your net net is after all of your expenses, your daycare, your hobbies, your dining out on the weekends, your utilities, your groceries. How much is the net net income that you have just going to your checking and savings for a rainy day? It's very important to ask that. But more importantly, you have to back it up, because every single person is always going to reply with an inflated number. So they're always going to say, oh, well, Daniel, I have about $1,000. That is my net net I add to my checking and savings. Okay, so if you're adding 1,000 to your checking and savings, how much do you currently hold on average in your checking and savings? And so you see how that became a bridge to ask a very sensitive question. The reason why that's my favorite question is because that positions you with the absolute most leverage. That's the pain. The reason why homeowners want a 2.5 or a 3.5 is because they don't understand the logistics or the dynamics of mortgage like you and I do. They understand that if I lower my rate by a full point, then it should create X amount of savings, and that should be worth my time. When in a lot of instances, it's not that case. And so if they say that, you know, I average on checking and savings of $1,000, then you know that they have less than one mortgage payment inside their bank account every single month. And that, again, positions you with more authority. So the point is that in order to drive a sales conversation, you need to come up with two different things in order to position yourself. I actually have this acronym. It's called CENTS, C-E-N-T-S. And I tell all of my team this acronym because, and they understand it. And this is the reason why they have the highest funded average and the highest unit origination average. CENTS stands for C is you have to garner curiosity. And then EN is you have to then extract their needs, not their wants, because they're going to tell you they want the 3.5, but extracting their needs, basically meaning I need to create cash flow to offset the debts that I manage because I'm only sending minimum payments. And then when you extract their needs, you find their truth. Their truth is their why. It's the entire reason of them even calling you. And when you can find their why, you could tailor fit your message in order to control the conversation. It's a huge difference than most loan officers who just start off the conversation. Well, how can I help you? Well, I saw an ad 3 months ago for 3.5 with no cost loans. Immediately what we do as loan officers, we think of the rate sheet that we saw that day. And we think like, oh, the market's up, and it completely deflates our demeanor, and our message and our tonality changes. We're no longer in control. If anything, we're deflecting those inbound leads, which are valuable to us because each and every single person that calls you has a need. It's a matter of finding the need. And how you do that is you simply comply. So even if someone called me and said, I want the 0.5 30-year fix, no cost. Awesome. Let me go ahead and show you how to get that. Now, let me ask you a few basic questions first before I begin, just to make sure I can even help you first. If I can't, I'll point you in the right direction. But if I can, I'll show you exactly what I could do. Make sense? Comment in the comment box. Let me know if that's powerful stuff. If you want to learn more about it, I got a ton of content on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Be sure you add Sales Remastered. Now, going on to the second topic, how to differentiate yourself from competitors.
Daniel, so, before you jump top, I gotta, this is like, so a lot of comments coming in. People are saying awesome, great stuff. Love the feedback, but I just gotta, like, that line of questioning. I mean, what it does, and I'm gonna talk about an extreme example here. When Deborah talked about actually how she just refinanced the client that had $72,000 in credit card debt, and saved her $2,300 a month. No idea that this was an option until she presented this.
Yes. Good job, Deborah. Good job, Deborah. You'll be amazed how many loan officers never even get that far simply because they're not driving the conversation. So Deborah, you'll see, just like everyone else here that's listening in, you'll see why it's important to drive the conversation is because you're extracting the needs. You're asking them questions that enable them to open themselves up to you, which is what we need for the sales conversation, right? So again, the sales conversation is not about closing. It's not about having your pricing engine open up. It's not about, offering them programs or options. It's about building rapport and building leverage, finding out how you can actually save them. And one last note on that topic is every single sales conversation you engage with, you have intent. Now, there's going to be two forms of intent. One is going to steer you in the wrong direction where you're going to burn a lot of time, you're going to burn a lot of leads, you're going to end up getting frustrated and not making the sales that you need to make to reach your potential. And that need to make a sale. The second need is the real need that you need to really adopt, and it's a need to actually serve a solution. How can I help you with the expertise that I have and the knowledge that I have and the products that I have, actually create a solution and a map for you to achieve X, Y, and Z? That is the need you need to adopt. So if that's anything, that I could leave you with on that first topic, it's that. Now, the second topic is how to differentiate yourself from competitors, how to differentiate yourself from everyone else, from the low price lenders, whether it's your JG Wentworth, whether it's your Better Mortgage, or whether it's Quicken, or whoever lender that you're actually going up against. The true way to differentiate yourself is to make noise in a different way. And so it starts off from actually having a proper intent. So when most of our sales conversations start, our initial intent, because we have 99 other things to juggle, we have 9 other fires, right? We have 9 other appointments, we have so many things to juggle. Our initial intent is to get these people out of the way so we can move on to the next call, or move on to the next lead, or move on to the next fire. But the idea is that whatever engagement you have, whatever prospect you talk to, give them your fully undivided attention, because that person may not be in a position to buy from you right now, but that doesn't mean that not going to be in a position to buy from you 3 months or 6 months from now. That doesn't mean that person doesn't know a coworker, a neighbor, or a friend who also would like some really genuine advice from a professional like you. So understand that and keep that in mind. But how to make noise in a different way is, again, simply using the sales script at salesremastered.com. Your opening is going to be completely different from everyone else, because if you've ever heard your competition, or even if you hear the loan officers around you, how they usually start the conversation is they give control of the conversation back to the prospect. How can I help you today? What brought you in today? Why are you giving us a call today? That's giving them full control. Instead, you need to be genuinely interested on helping them solve a particular pain, because again, what's everyone's favorite station? It's WIIFM. What's in it for them? And what's going to set you apart from everyone else is when you have a completely tailored solution that applies to their exact needs versus a generic option that's given by all your competitors. What do your competitors sound like? Your competitors sound like, hey, Jim, I got a couple options for you. Grab your pen and paper. I got option number 1, 4.25, no closing cost. I got option number 2, 4%, no lender fee. I got option number 3, 3.875, and you pay the closing cost, right? So that's not speaking to them and their needs. Until you actually give them the time that they deserve and really listen as opposed to over talking, where I see a lot of loan officers making this mistake where they're over talking their prospects. And it's natural because you don't like awkward silence, but you have to allow them to open up to you, because the words that they're telling you are going to be the ammunition that you need in your sales presentation to properly close that prospect. And so when they tell you that they need the extra cash flow to offset the $30,000 in credit card debt, or to offset the decline in income because the missus on maternity leave, or because the husband lost his overtime, or because the kid is now driving, those are the things that you're going to enunciate inside your sales presentation that's going to make it tailor fit. And that is how you actually differentiate yourself, is you're making it more custom fit, more custom tailored. One thing that I know from being a consumer is that we all look for deals, right? We all go to Amazon to see if we can get a better price. We all go to another store if we see a better price. But one thing is for certain is that we will pay a premium cost if it fits us better, if we really like the way that it applies to us and our preferences, right? And this is the reason why there are certain retail shops that are literally expanding, they're profiting, they're capitalizing on the event, is because they've kind of hit that niche. And that's exactly what you need to adopt. And in order to differentiate yourself, is you need to speak to them in their language. And so instead of saying, hey Jim, I could save you a couple $100 per month by going with option number 2, you can instead say, hey Jim, I know retirement is important to you, and this extra $200 a month will enable you to increase your retirement contribution so that you can retire on time with a comfortable payment that fits your budget. Much more powerful than saying, hey Jim, I can help you save a couple $100, or I can help you save some money this month. It's really just a matter of listening and fine-tuning your message in a way that actually is applicable to the person that you're dealing with. And when that happens, when you actually have a custom fit remedy to the prospect that you're talking to, what happens is that builds such a strong rapport and bond that they don't look at you as every single salesman, because every single salesman came in with the intent to sell. They did not come in with the intent to solve a particular problem that they're looking to solve, right? To actually fulfill. And so when you start using the words that they use, they understand it a bit better than if we're just to say very generic claims. Like, I could lower your rate and lower your payment with option number 1. And then what happens is we typically expect them to buy because it's a little bit lower than their interest rate. But the missing piece, the missing ingredient is, how does that apply to them? And so if you can have a general or generic customs, a generic suit that doesn't necessarily fit you versus a suit that does fit you to every single degree, your shoulders, your width of your chest, it's a matter of having that preference. It's a matter of having something that feels like it was made for you. And that's why people pay extra for the things that really apply to them. And again, it's going back to that WIIFM. So that's how you differentiate yourself from competitors. Finally, how to foster loyalty and create urgency. Again, going back to driving the conversation and differentiating yourself, it's really a matter of really communicating to them on their preference. And so what is their preference? Again, WIIFM. Their preference is things that apply to them, because initially in the sales conversation, their goal is to what? Protect their time. It's to protect themselves, right? And so in order to protect their time, they need to understand that whatever you're saying or whatever you're presenting applies to them. Because if they don't feel that it applies to them, then they're going to give you less attention. You need that attention in order to captivate their interest and bring them to the pitch table, which is basically the pitch call or your presentation. And in order to do that, you need to really understand your leverage points. And that's why driving the conversation is very important, because in that first conversation, you need to extract their true need, to find their truth, to find their why. I know, Mr. Patel, that you want that 1.5 30-year fix with no cost, but why is that important to you? And the reason why he says it is, oh, to afford my son's tuition, or to offset the loss of income because my wife got laid off. Those are certain things that you need to really hone in on, because you're going to simply repeat that in the sales presentation. But in order to actually foster loyalty and create urgency, is that when you go into your pitch presentation, in your sales presentation, which, by the way, most loan officers, and I mentor thousands of loan officers across the country in my Sales Remastered program. It's called the Sales Boost Camp. And one thing that I know is most common is that most sales pitches are presented and set up in a way that a sales pitch would be set up. And in other words, it sounds something like this. After the first conversation, it says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put a couple options together, and I'll give you a call back in half an hour when I have my options ready. Number one is you called them options. So as a consumer, you understand as options, you can say yes or no. Number two is you gave them half an hour. In other words, that's a convenient time for you, not them. So if they said, I think there's another decision maker involved. If they even if they said I send $500 on their debts, bottom line is, if they're married, and for those of you who are married, comment in the comment box, do you ever make a decision without the blessing of your spouse? Do you ever jump on an opportunity without first running it by your spouse? Most homeowners are married. Most homeowners have another decision maker. Regardless of their breadwinner or not, you need to position yourself properly to make sure that you're presenting the information with both parties at hand. But most in particularly, you need to present the information, because your pitch is your dance. That's your time that's your showcase. So
I just say,
yep.
It's amazing. Like, people are saying not just no, but no, all caps, exclamation point. And I know we're about to get ready to go into Ken's presentation, but I had to interject. Like, people are very adamantly a no with exclamation points. So
nice.
Very, very cool.
Nice. So in order to foster loyalty and create urgencies, number one is you need to adapt it to them. And then to create urgency is you need to practice the FOMO effect. FOMO is fear of missing out. And so what I notice that most loan officers do is that they'll present their bottom line price with the maximum pricing exception and then hope that they buy. Instead, you need to present it at current retail price, before your exception, before any discount, before anything. So if you say I got 4.5, even though you got pre-approved for 4.5 with no closing costs, you need to come in as 4.5 at retail. So 4.5, well, let's say at par. And how you create urgency is saying, hey, I got an idea. I want to run it by you. I have a campaign that's specific to your area, and I believe I can ask my manager to waive all of the closing costs. This means I can give you lender credit of $3,000 or whatever applies, but I need all of your documents by tomorrow, end of business day. If you can give me all your documents by end of day tomorrow, I can try and fit your loan file in with this campaign to see if we can waive all closing costs. That means to you, Jim, I could save you $3,000. Your call. What are your thoughts on that? And because of the fear of missing out, what do you think he's going to say? He's going to say, yeah, I can have the documents to you tonight. And that's how you create the urgency. So I know I came over a lot of information. I probably went over my time limit, but there's a ton more information at Sales Remastered, and I invite you to check those pages out. And what my friend Ken is going to do is actually share with you from a sales manager perspective why these principles are most effective and why they're important in regards to owning your lead.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's great that you give away the script right at the website. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Ken, you there with us?
Sure, Daniel, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Fantastic. All right, Ken, ready or not, here comes the presenter. All right, and you should be queued up, ready for you whenever you're ready to share. All right, fantastic.
Working?
Yep, beautiful. Awesome.
Move that up there. All right, guys, so I'm Ken Bartz. I'm the CVO at Monster Lead Group. A long time ago, I was a loan officer. spent some years doing that, started my own company, built a multi-billion-dollar origination platform, sold that, and somehow got pulled back in to do marketing for the mortgage industry. And we do marketing and sales, work at a very different level. We really work from the top down. So as Daniel's working at a very grassroots level, working with loan officers, which I would love to be able to do someday if I had a lot of free time. So Daniel, I don't know how you do it, but God bless you. But we work from the top down. So from organizations, our clients are on pace to do about $13 billion this year in origination. And the question I always get asked when we come into these organizations is, how do we own our customers? So everybody wants to own the customer. And I think Daniel kind of hit it on the head at a loan officer level is people do business with people they like, right? And I think what most people are missing in the industry, and we start this at the very top level, is an attitude. It's a changing of thought process. So what we see is that organizations look at leads as just numbers, right? This is just another lead coming in. It's another lead coming in. It's another lead coming in. And we need to change that thought process from these are leads to these are people. And these are real people with real problems. And we have a real responsibility as an industry and as a member of the industry to serve those people, right? So we need to change the attitude from what can I do for this lead? From what can this lead do for me to what can I do for this person? Let's remember that this is a human being, right? So the mind shift has to change from what can this do for me? Understand this. If you do a deal with someone, you are getting one commission, right? Let's say you make $1,500. So maybe you pay your rent next month. Maybe you can pay your car payment. Maybe you've got some extra money to go out on the weekend or take a vacation. But no single deal is going to change your life, right? You need to stack up a bunch of deals on top of each other just to have a good month. And then you have to stack up a bunch of deals every month to have a good year. And then you have to stack up a bunch of deals over many, many years to have a great career, right? So any single transaction doesn't mean a whole lot to you. But think about the consumer. Think about the difference you can make in their life, okay? So if you really think about it, think about the single mom, right? Who she comes to you, and this is a true story. Recently, I came across a single mom. She has 2 kids. She works 2 jobs to support those children. Doesn't get to spend a lot of time with her kids. Had to do a refinance, and there was a whole bunch of credit card debt there. And the reason she was working 2 jobs is because she was saddled with all this credit card debt. And somewhere along the line, someone told her that they should not, that she didn't want MI. So the first loan officer she talks to, she says, well, I want to do a refinance, but I don't want any MI. So they go in and they give her this solution. And that solution, they give her a product, so to speak, with no MI. But that didn't solve her problem. So when I met her, I referred her to someone else who I know would ask the right questions, dig deep. And that person actually gave her a different type of loan that had mortgage insurance, but was able to solve her problem. And really what it was able to do is to allow her not to work her second job. So think about the difference in that woman's life, right? She doesn't have to work 2 jobs anymore. And then think about the ripple effect. Like, it has to be better for her children that she gets to spend more time with them, right? So we need to stop thinking about what this lead means to me, and we need to start thinking about what can I do for this person. If you want to own a consumer, start thinking like that, right? Because the truth of the matter is, the reason that we like people isn't because they mimic us or some of these other sales techniques. It's because people care, right? So we are the most highly evolved communication devices on the planet, right? We think that our verbal communication is where it is. That's only 7% of the way we communicate, right? So over 50% is facial expression and body language, and then there's intonation, the way the way we talk, and not what we're actually saying. What I mean by that is that people can tell whether you care about them, whether you use the words "I care about you" or not, and from the way you act and the way you are. And it's going to give you a lot more confidence if you're coming at it from that standpoint, right? Because if you're afraid of losing a deal, that's when you lose the deal, right? So if you come across like I have to get this deal, I have to get this deal. Those are the ones you don't get. So the really simple answer to how do we own a customer? How do we own our customer? It's pretty simple. Just care about them, right? Care more about what happens at the outcome of that transaction. And I think Daniel nailed it pretty good when he said, let's talk about solutions, right? Let's find the problem that these people have and solve it. We can't assume that people know what problem they have, number one. And we have, in the industry, we have what's called the curse of knowledge. So we end up kind of projecting that out on people. Like, you know, well, someone should only want to do a deal because of this or because of that. And the truth of the matter is every person is different. Everybody has their own motivations. Everybody has their own unique set of problems. And all a mortgage is, guys, is a solution to a problem, right? The only reason you have a mortgage is to solve a problem. Problem number one, I want to buy that house. I don't have enough money to buy that house. It's going to take me 30 years to save that much money, right? So, you know, you want home ownership, problem number one solved, here's a mortgage. So go into it with that kind of mindset, organizationally have that mindset, because if the organization has that mindset, then the loan officer has no choice but to have that mindset. So if you want to own your customer either as a loan officer or as a company, care about the consumer. I mean, really care about them. Sorry. So, you know, change of mindset is first and foremost. Remember that there's a human on the other side of that transaction, like I said, and the transaction can and should mean more to the borrower than to the rep. Another question I constantly get asked is, you know, hey, it's great, but how do I really scale my business? How do I build an elite team, right? How do I get this thing? And if there's one term in the industry I would like done away with is seasoned loan officers, right? So you see these images up on the screen here, the Patriots, the Blue Angels, Delta Force, Navy SEALs. You know, what do all these have in common? These are all pretty elite organizations, right? I think we can agree on that. And so their elite teams all have the following, right? So they all have a culture of high expectation. They expect a lot out of the people in their team, right? They have this relentless pursuit of perfection. They have a process of evaluation, how they evaluate people even to get into their organization, and then how do you stay a part of the organization, and then continuous training and coaching. And this is the part that gets to me quite often. I hear loan officers say, and I'm a seasoned sales guy, I don't need any training. I hear organizations have that same attitude about their staff. And that is as ridiculous as, let's say, Tom Brady telling Bill Belichick he doesn't need to practice because he's the greatest of all times. He knows that playbook inside and out. He's done this for a bazillion years, and he's won 6 Super Bowls. Can you imagine any professional athlete who's achieved that ultimate level of success telling their coach that they don't have to practice, that they don't need to learn new plays, that they don't have to innovate? And yet, in the organization, in the mortgage industry, we accept that being a seasoned loan officer is a badge, right, to be carried around. It's not a finish line. That's the starting line, right? Being seasoned means you've been doing this long enough that you can make a career out of it. In order to make a career out of it, you should continuously try to make yourself better. So I appreciate the people that are actually on this webinar, because you are some of the people in the industry that can make this better, because you want to make yourselves better. You want to learn things. And quite often organizations get hemmed into that attitude, and loan officers get hemmed into that attitude. So if you want to build an elite team from an organizational standpoint, or if you're a loan officer that wants to build an elite team around you, it's pretty simple, right? The formula is simple. Execution is not so simple. So have a culture of high expectations. Don't settle for less. A relentless pursuit of perfection. Try to be perfect. You're never going to get there, but always trying to do that is going to make you better. A process of evaluation and continuous training and coaching. So the last thing that I always get asked when I'm doing these, is how do we become market agnostic? So how are we insulated from rising rates? So in 2018, when interest rates went up and most of the industry was contracting, most of our clients were growing. As a matter of fact, that's what allowed them to be in a position to do the type of volume they're doing this year. I think we did a little over $7 billion in 2018 when the industry was contracting. So How do we help our clients become market agnostic and insulated from rising interest rates? We teach them a couple things, right? And the first thing, there's 3 real steps to make yourself market agnostic. And really what's interesting is I'd never really heard Daniel's content. I'd heard a lot about him. But he mentioned most of these things in what he was saying in maybe in a little different way. But they are pretty simple, right? So the first thing is to stop, right? Stop selling mortgage products. Selling a mortgage product is like selling the manufacturing process to a car. Nobody cares, right? They only care that the car gets so much gas mileage, or that it can get them from point A to point B, or that it's electric, or whatever the selling features are that solves their problem. It allows them to do what they want to do. They don't care about the manufacturing process. When we start talking about mortgage products, here loan officers start talking about all these this product and that product, and that's just honestly to imagine going car shopping and all they want to talk about is manufacturing. Like, look, take me for a test drive. Tell me what this car is going to do for me. Tell me the gas mileage. Tell me how, the cost of ownership over 5 years, or something that's germane to me or that's important to me personally, not necessarily, this general process. The number 2 thing is pretty important. I think Daniel said it in a very different way. I say it like this: remove risk from the sales process. So, and I'll explain this in more detail. Actually, I'll go explain this right now. So there's this theory that the riskier something is, the greater the benefit needs to be for you to countervail that risk, right? And if you think about your mortgage is your single largest asset for most people. It's their single biggest liability, their single biggest payment on a monthly basis in most cases. Sometimes their credit cards may be out of control. But in most cases, it's their single largest payment. And it's their home, right? They have an emotional connection. It's where they keep their stuff. So who you trust to do your mortgage and actually messing with the status quo of your mortgage, if you're making your payment month over month, without knowing the things we know inside the industry, it can be very scary, very risky to mess with that status quo, right? I tell people, look, next to who you trust your kids with, who you trust your mortgage with might be the second riskiest thing you can do, right? And you wouldn't just get a letter in the mail or call somebody or even get a referral to someone who is going to take care of your children and just jump right into that, right? You wouldn't say, okay, sign me up. And yet in the mortgage industry, we kind of expect that. So a mortgage is a very risky thing. And Daniel mentioned it like this: loan officers go right in for the close. Here's the program, here's the close, right? We haven't removed the risk, right? If you've ever said to yourself, man, I really wish I knew then what I know now, what you're saying about information, right, is that had I had that information a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, it would have been really valuable. But because I have it today, it's not nearly as valuable. And so what I tell people is, look, let's stop selling mortgages and sell information, right? And don't even sell information, provide information, right? Because that's really ultimately what's going to sell the mortgage, because the benefit of information much outweighs the risk of getting the information. So I'm just back here real fast. The third thing is provide solutions to problems, known or unknown. I want to get you guys out of here in less than an hour. So I'm going to wrap this up real fast because Daniel hit a lot of this really hard. But lastly, this comes down to information, but selling versus diagnosing, right? Which one of these guys would you trust? And I'm just going to leave you with this image because, a lot of us come off in this industry as salespeople. You want to be a sales guy, you want to be the doctor. If you had to get an operation, which one of these guys would you trust and want to get information from? So thank you guys. I wanted to land this plane on time for you. I know time is my most valuable commodity, so I respect your time as well. Obviously, Daniel did a fantastic job. You can get his download at salesrepmaster.com, and you can go to monsterleadgroup.com and get the 4 flaws that most organizations make and how to avoid them. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Sorry I had to speed this up, but I wanted to land you on time.
Oh, great stuff. Thanks, Ken. Always great having you on these. We really appreciate this, the partnership that we created with you to help our readers just kind of step up their game with sales, with marketing. Daniel, just a great job. Really just love the materials you presented. I just think it's awesome that you're sharing scripts with us, with our audience. I mean, that is just super cool. So everyone, you've got on your screen the call to actions, what you could do next to kind of put into place some of the things that Daniel shared, and some of the things that both Ken shared. And for all the questions that were asked, they will, we will get to everyone individually. But just thank you again for joining us for another Unit Busters. I hope you're having a great November. I hope November's off to a great start, and you're wrapping up this year to be a great one. We've got some more good stuff coming for you guys. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.